goes live. And that's what we're hoping for, anyway. And 1, 2, 3. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am happy to be here with you. Even though this is a deeply troubling time for America, this is a deeply troubling time to be a conservative, to be a Republican, to be anybody except a progressive. I know a lot of people will be upset about that. There are people in America who will be very upset about that. And it is very likely that at any point during this conversation, we may be cut off by the major internet overlords, and this will be silenced. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today, because there is a purge ongoing. There is a problem in America, and it isn't President Trump. It is far, far bigger than that. I'm glad a lot of people are here with us today, and we're going to be talking about a lot of issues. First of all, before I get to that, let me mention, if you haven't been here before, what we do every week at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is a live stream where we're talking to you. You are able to speak with us directly. You can reach us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and leave comments with us as long as those internet overlords allow that. We do see interruptions, and we expect them today and going forward. On the regular week, we talk about long-form political commentary. Obviously, the big thing that is on everyone's mind right now is there a second civil war coming? Is America breaking apart? Is this the fault of President Trump? Is there a purge ongoing at this moment? And what will this mean for us? Can President-elect Biden, bring America back together? Can we unify as a nation like we were in 2019, like we were in the 1970s, like we have been for the 5 decades that I've been alive? It's a question that requires free speech. It requires your ability to talk with us. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this, because this affects the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 10th Amendment. It goes into the 14th and 25th. This is going to affect everyone we know. And regardless of whether you follow politics or not, politics are going to affect you. There is no question on that. And I hope people will stick with me through this and hear what we have to say, both what we're going to be saying here and what everyone watching this is saying about this. This is a time where Americans, all Americans of whatever belief, whatever religious, political, whatever ideology you may have, that we all speak out and have conversation with each other before it's too late, in our opinion. I want to mention something from 2019, and some of you may have seen it, many have not. And I want you to hear this. Oops, wait a minute. Bear with me. I want to fix the sound on that. Sorry. Getting ready for the show, and I forgot to do one thing here. And bear with me as I fix this for you, because I want you to be able to hear this clearly. And now you should be able to hear this. When you have an organization that acts only in secrecy, and when we see their actions, we see very often violence. We see suppression of freedom. We see totalitarian and authoritarian actions. And they claim to be on the left. They claim to be the heroes, that they're taking care of people. They're champions. They should be, that they think that they should be lauded for their actions. And I have to say to myself, and I say to everyone else, why? Now, oops, sorry. That was our conversation back on August 18th of 2019. At the time, we've been talking about riots in Portland, in Seattle, the violence of BLM, Antifa, and the far left. And at the time, no one in the major news media spoke out against it. At that time, no one in the Democratic Party spoke out against it. It wasn't the last time that we saw things like that happen. And it was part of the resistance. It was actions that we saw that were part of the resistance. Resist President Trump, resist the right, resist what they did not agree with. And they took violent means to do so. And we called it out, just as we are calling out the violent actions in Washington, D.C. this week. Because any group, any organization, any individual that uses fear, intimidation, violence, or the threat of violence to cause others to submit is wrong. We believe that totally. That is not what America is based on. But at the same time, we must call out the fact that we have seen elements of the United States government and in our news media propel what we are seeing now, a separation of individuals, a purge that is going on, a splitting of the nation based on ideology that's dangerous for every one of us. Now, you may or may not agree with this. You may or may not think that we're right. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Again, you can reach us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can comment. This is about a conversation, and this is going to be a serious conversation. Because we've seen what happens when we don't have the conversation, when we don't speak out about those who are using violence and intimidation. We've seen what happens in Antifa with over 120 days of riots in Portland and Seattle, where we've seen entire communities burned down in Minneapolis, businesses destroyed, individuals killed, like in Dallas and Austin, Kenosha. We know where this leads, and it is not a good place. And we do need to speak about this, because we are seeing this happen in various laws, where we are seeing things like the red flag laws that are coming. They are coming, where you will, by merely being accused, punished without any due process. That's a terrifying thought. Just eliminating the Fifth Amendment, because you have been accused and therefore you must be guilty. And we've seen that with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We see that right now with Nancy Pelosi, and we're going to get into that. That they are just going out and by the mere accusation, they are seeking to punish individuals that do not follow their rules, their preferences. And it's okay. I tell you, that terrifies me. And I don't know if Twitter has completely removed me at the moment or not, but we're going to keep going as long as we can. So, I want to hear from you. Please tell me whether you agree with me or not. I want to hear your voices here, because this is important. We've heard individuals, if you may recall, back in October 27th of 2020, I want you to hear this. So the Democrats are upset because of politics, because they wanted the seat. They wanted the opportunity to put in their own judge, because they don't like the idea that the Supreme Court now has a 6-3 lean towards the right instead of leaning to the left. Now that's important. We've seen consistently for years now that Democrats have been very upset. And this is going back before President Obama. This is going back before President Bush. This is going back before Clinton. We have been hearing consistently for decades now that the left has been pushing and saying, you really can't disagree with them. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about rank and file Democrats. I'm talking about what we're seeing from the far left, the progressive movement, the extreme wings of the left ideology. They have been telling us in colleges and in our classrooms and to our children and in TV shows and movies, you have to agree with us, or you're a sexist, you're a racist, you're a homophobe. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, gay or straight, male or female, whatever your sexual preference may be. It doesn't matter what religion you have. If you don't agree, then you're a problem. And any time that they saw a setback, well, that was an outrage in each and every case. You think of the riots that happened across America that were always called protests. They were mostly peaceful each and every single time. And then we look at what happened in Washington, D.C. And someone said, we don't trust Joe Biden. We don't trust Kamala Harris. We don't trust the election that happened because of irregularities that have yet to be resolved. No confidence exists in this new administration. And rather than having anyone address that, we have been told, well, then you must be a racist. Then you must be a sexist. And you must be punished. And in fact, we've seen people say that they're coming to punish us very clearly. This is not a guess. This is not me spouting some kind of conspiracy theory. This is coming from no less than Politico, where we see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to cancel those who work for Trump. Good luck with that, they say. But what else will we see is right here over the weekend. This was on November 11th of 2020, just 2 months ago. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez kicked things off on Friday with this tweet. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future, she wrote. I don't foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future. And then a group calling itself the Trump Accountability Project rose up to do exactly what she said, to identify and list everyone who had an ideology separate of Democrats and progressives. Of course, now that site is gone. You can't see it. It's almost as if it doesn't exist, except it does exist. It is there. But instead, you're seeing them hide what they are looking to do, sort of, because it's not really being hidden. In fact, what we're seeing is individuals like this one. J.D. Perlofsky mentioned on Twitter, every single person who participated in insurrection last night needs to be on that list. Basically, every person who participated in the Save America rally nonsense should be on the no-fly list. PCR Right Goods mentions, including the senators and congressmen and Trump family, including them as in just American citizens. American citizens who went to peacefully protest. American citizens who went to peacefully voice their opinion. And much in the same way that we saw the mostly peaceful protests throughout the summer of 2020. And this time, there wasn't an building burning in the background of CNN. There weren't arsons going on behind the background of the MSNBC anchors. We saw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals in Washington, D.C. peacefully protest and say they have questions. We saw a couple of hundred individuals, some of them members of Antifa, some of them part of the far right, that did commit acts of violence, that broke into our Capitol, into Congress. And what about those people? Do they deserve to be punished? Absolutely. Absolutely, they broke the law. Because any protest, which is mostly peaceful, is not peaceful. And therefore, that means that there was a problem. There was violence. There were laws that were broken. They should be punished. But let's make sure we treat this on an equal scale. If we're looking at this in the same way, if we're looking this, as I mentioned, to Donna Lapardo and to those who follow her on Twitter, when I said, hey, I'm using the same standards given to BLM, Antifa, and Plot. These are angry Americans who have lost their trust in government. I denounce all violence, but to call them terrorists is to ignore the cause. It's to ignore what's going on. Now, does that mean that we should see Vice President-elect Kamala Harris put together a multi-million-dollar fund that's there to help bail out every single individual that the FBI is now going around trying to arrest? to help keep alive and help the incomes of those who are being labeled as insurrectionists, like she did for those in Portland, in Seattle, throughout the entire nation, Minnesota, Minneapolis, I should say, New York City, Rochester, all these places where individuals broke the law, but that was okay because they were breaking the law against President Trump, a duly elected president. They were breaking the law, but it was in favor of progressive ideology. We've gone well beyond the moment where we can say that this is merely a difference of political opinions. And I am terrified. I've said it before that I was afraid to see a second civil war. But remember, we're hearing President-elect Joe Biden, we're hearing Joe Biden say, we must unify or else. You must do this. We must be one voice. Otherwise, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a sexist. You are an ism and an ist, and you are a problem in America, and we are putting together lists against you. Hi, Jason. Yeah, I know. It's lagging because I'm speaking about something that we know Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they are absolutely against. As I said, they may silence us at any moment. I will not be surprised if after a decade of being on YouTube, if from being on, I don't know, tens of thousands of tweets on Twitter, for years upon years of being on Facebook, if they don't eliminate this and silence us, even though we're speaking First Amendment, because we're speaking about what's going on, what is documented as being happening in America right now, and asking for other Americans to add their voices, I would not be surprised if they completely remove this, because that's not what they want. Because they're asking us, Joe Biden and others, they're saying, well, you must unify. You must be of one voice. We must be all together, even though they're asking us to remember to forget 4 years of attacks and impeachments, to forget not our president, and the resistance is a good thing. That we're not to remember that Representative Maxine Waters, going out and telling crowds of people to assault and harass conservatives just because they are conservatives. I mean, the list goes on and on. And that's a problem. Because we have seen the insurrection, and I would say the insurrection is anyone who has been splitting America. It's perfectly fine to have a different opinion, and I look forward to anyone who disagrees with me. I'm giving you the forum. You can call in to 607-242-1582. The phone is on. You can tell me you disagree with me. You can tell me how I'm wrong and I misunderstand. But that's because we have a First Amendment right to speak. A First Amendment right that's being destroyed as we speak. Thousands of people have been removed from Twitter, permanently banned. We have, right now, Amazon is removing Parler, an organization meant only to be able to give people another means of being able to speak. It's called competition, folks. Free speech, other opportunities, American entrepreneurism. And yet they are removing that. Because, well, we don't like that. How dare you speak out? How dare you give people a platform to be able to speak? That's not just censorship. This is saber rattling of the worst kind. And we're seeing this being excused left and right. And I mean left and right. Because even in Binghamton, my hometown, right now where I live, the city of Binghamton mayor concerned about possible protests, and he's not worried about protests from the left. He's worried about protests from the right, something that we really haven't seen in America. Because we're watching Republicans and conservatives roll over right now, doing everything they could possibly do to say, oh, we're sorry for the fact that some Americans, a large number of Americans, are worried and concerned that their votes have been completely discounted, that they have been ignored, disenfranchised from the political process. that 75 million people who voted for President Trump, and more importantly, for a Republican and conservative ideology, well, they're being told they're not just victims, they're criminals, that they're wrong in the worst kind of way, and that they should be fired from their jobs. They should be persecuted and attacked in ways that we have never seen happen before. You didn't see this. No one made a list of all the BLM members, the Antifa members, and said, let's go after them. Let's take away their jobs. Let's punish them. In fact, those that actually broke, and I'm not saying they all broke the law, but even the ones who did break the law, what did we see? That they were released on bail reform, that we had movie stars and entertainers coming out and saying, no, it's perfectly okay because we agree. And for those that don't agree, oh, well, we must punish you. We must harm you. We must force you to submit. That is not the American way. At least that's not the way I see it. But I even as I speak right now with you, this is being diminished. We are being limited. And that's terrifying. Because all we've done and all we continue to do is to call out and say, we have a voice, hear us. It was just a few days ago that I sent out a letter to every single member of Congress, of the New York State legislature, saying, hey, the red flag laws are separating children from their families, that they are punishing Americans without the due process guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment. And we need an accounting of that. We need you to step up and to show us this. And we're seeing that being silenced. We're seeing this show, this program, live right now, be silenced. It is troubling. This doesn't go forward positively. This isn't about unity. In fact, I said something similar to this when I was asking about whether or not Binghamton, New York will become the next Portland, a city filled with riots and fighting. And this is what I said. It's very clear. Plot made it very clear. They were there to disrupt. They weren't there to speak. They weren't there to share their ideas. They weren't there to let people know how they felt about an issue. They were there to disrupt, to intimidate, to harass, to menace. Each of those being a crime in New York State and across the country. And yet at that time, that same mayor, the same mayor that at this moment in Binghamton is saying that he's worried and concerned about possible protests in the city, had nothing to say. The same mayor who didn't say anything about the protests at Binghamton University that attacked students with a mob of 200 versus 3, that ran Dr. Art Laffer out of Binghamton University, that ran through our streets late at night. He had nothing to say about that. And by the way, Mayor Rich David is a Republican. And yes, I know him. And I've spoken with him many times. And I don't think he's a bad man. But yes, I will call him out when he's doing something like this, merely for the show of politics. Let me answer some of the comments here. Chicken Beak mentions, I've never used Twitter or Facebook. Think I shared some wedding photos once a decade ago. I don't read them or go there. They have been blocked. They have been blocked in my browser since they have basically existed. I think they have a right to a company to ban anyone they want, but also people can just stop using them. Well, let me address that. And it's a great question, Chicken Beak. And we've talked about this before on the program. They are a private company. And I'm not saying that they have to live up to the First Amendment because they are required to do that. I'm saying they're not living up to their own standards. They create new rules specifically targeting one group of people versus others. We have seen them go to Congress for years now and say that they do, in fact, treat different types of people differently. That if you happen to be a white male, if you happen to be a conservative or Republican, you are going to be censored in a way that a black activist is not. that if you happen to be BLM or Antifa, they're not going to treat you the same. We see that with Twitter, you can be the Ayatollah of Iran, and you can wish death to America and seek violence throughout the world, and you will not have your Twitter account changed or inhibited. But to be on the right, to be a conservative, well, that's beyond the pall, and they will delete you. They have already, in the last week, we have heard reports of thousands of Americans, somewhere between 6 to as many as 80,000 Facebook accounts have been wiped, Twitter accounts have been wiped out. Yes, you can stop using them, Chicken Beak, but let me ask you a question. Look at the world today. Twitter, Facebook, social media is an integral part of how we do business, how we communicate, how news is distributed. You can't just remove social media. You can't. It's part of our lives. And to remove it without giving people an alternative means to use this communication, then you are, in fact, not only punishing them, you're ostracizing them. And that is unfair. You know, that's why the internet was created. A lot of people don't know this. The internet was actually created by the U.S. military, by DARPA, as an alternate means of communication in case the airwaves, the TV stations and radio stations were knocked out because of EMP and other systems similar to that. Yes, you can live fine without it, but it does limit some of the things you do. I'm not saying it's a perfect system. I'm not saying that I was 52 years old. I lived perfectly fine without having a cell phone. I lived perfectly well without having a voice recorder, a tape recorder, an answering machine. But that doesn't mean that I should be forced to have a lower quality of life just because I'm a Republican and I can live without it. See, there's the thing. There is an element of punishment that is going on here because of, and that's a persecution because of a political ideology. I know. Don't like it, build your own internet. Don't like it, build your own whatever it is. As if that's perfectly, oh yeah, that's absolutely possible. How much money does it cost to do that? To advertise that, to grow that, to develop it, to answer the software issues. It's not quite that simple. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do those things. I think we should, and we are seeing that happen. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that, as an example, Parler didn't agree with Twitter. They went out and built their own. And Amazon is punishing them for having that alternate system, something that has nothing to do with Facebook, has nothing to do with Twitter, has nothing to do with Google, and yet they are being punished because Amazon doesn't like their politics. See, that's the problem. And Chicken Beak, maybe you personally don't, but I can tell you that there's a lot of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds that would have a lower quality of life, that they believe it. Whether you personally don't, they do. And that's important. And when we do see people go out and build their own, then we are seeing people come to them and attack them for that and punish them for having done that. And that's a problem. That doesn't unify America when we see a very small group of super rich, super liberal individuals go out and say, oh, you did go out and build it. You did go out and say your own thing, to do your own thing with people who like what you provide. And then they go, oh, and we're going to get rid of that too. That is chilling the First Amendment. It is a message directly stated to the American people. You're going to do what we say or else we're going to punish you. We've been talking about this in many different ways, whether it's the vaccine passports where you are required to get because even though it's not a mandate, you have to get the COVID-19 vaccine Otherwise, you won't be able to travel because you won't be able to go to work and have businesses, regardless of what the side effects are of that, because the government said so. Oh, you can't go to work tomorrow because Governor Cuomo said it's been shut down. Because Governor Newsom and Governor Whitmer say, well, we don't like that business because we believe, without any science, that after 10 p.m., COVID is active. And so you have to shut your business down. You can't go out to a gym, no matter what precautions are taken. You can't go out to certain businesses and work with them. And those business owners can't open, and they will be punished through the full force of law without any law actually being passed, other than the emergency powers of a handful of governors who are overreaching their power. These are acts of punishment. Chicken Beat mentions, I know what you're saying, but still the fact remains, don't like it, turn it off, start a trend. AHS, I'm not sure what AHS means, to start somehow. Yeah, they're turning it off, all right. It's being turned off, but it has an impact. And let's not confuse that, we're just going to turn away from it. Like, that doesn't change a lot. What happens when we see, if Amazon is saying, Parler, we're going to get rid of that. Oh, by the way, everyone who is on Parler, you can't use Amazon to buy food or to buy their goods. What happens when Google says, we know where you've been because we've been tracking you for years, for decades, finding out where you go on the internet. You are a Republican or a conservative, or you're a libertarian, or you're anything but a progressive leftist, and we don't like the fact that you saw this site, whatever that site may be, and you're on our list. So now we're going to deny you the ability to use PayPal or Venmo. We're going to deny you the ability to go to any other sites. We're going to stop you from being able to purchase foods and clothing, equipment. And if you think they can't do it, they are doing it as we speak. They have made the list. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I showed you, she's already made the call. People already made lists. We showed you Trump, and we showed you when they first did it, the Trump Accountability Project. They made the lists. They are out there actively enacting those lists right now. And if you think it can't get worse, why not? They did it to the most powerful person in America, the president. If they can silence or attempt to silence the president, then why can't they do that to you? If they can try and they are trying to punish the president of the United States, why can't they punish you? And they are. We see the red flag laws in 17 states. You have no due process. You have been accused of a crime. You will be punished for that crime. By the way, there is no crime involved. That is the red flag laws. They will take your children away. They will take your property away. They will ostracize you in your community. And you will have no recourse on that to stop it. You won't even be told about it until after it happens, as we saw happen not only in the other 17 states, but in New York State alone to a gentleman in Rome. And it was so bad, he killed himself because of it. That was last February. And Jason, yeah. I'm sure this show will be purged. I'm sure my channel will be purged. I am sure that there is some leftists. I know that members of the local Antifa, the local Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the local Citizen Action and Black Lives Matters, they have already said that I'm a racist because I'm black and conservative and they don't like me. They have already gone around and said that I am some kind of racist, sexist, everything, ist and ism. And I'm sure they are right now actively trying to tell Facebook and Twitter and YouTube to say, we have to silence him, shut him down. And let me ask you a question. What have I said? Besides the fact that some people in America don't agree, all I've said is we need to speak and have a conversation. Why is that so terrifying to some people? Why do they need to silence that? I have no doubt they will be coming after me. But until they do, I'm going to speak. Because I don't want to see New York or anywhere in America be like what we see in Portland. Portland rioters swarmed the suburbs and attacked police station. I didn't hear anyone call that a terrorist act. I didn't hear anyone say that was an act of insurrection. By the way, that happened on January 8th. January 8th. Why was that okay? Because it happened in Portland and it didn't happen in D.C.? What's the difference? It was mostly peaceful. So was D.C. What's the difference? And this comes from the Daily Caller. 100 people went out, destroyed public property, busted windows, blocked traffic. But that's okay. No one calls that out. No one called that insurrection. No one called that violence. No one said that when there was the autonomous zone in Seattle, when they attempted to create the autonomous zone in Austin, in Indianapolis, when they tried to do that in Atlanta, no one said that that was an insurrection, even though the very words from the people of the autonomous zone was that they seceded from the United States. They actively occupied territory and individuals who may not agree with them and blocked them off from the rest of America by force of arms and will. And that's not, but I was told that's not terrorist. Really? There is a problem when that's okay and being able to be on Twitter is not. That extreme is a problem. And we need to address that as a nation because we cannot unify. We cannot unify. Chicken Beak mentions, yep, also there are self-described lefties out there who are logical and agree with you and are railing against the same thing. Network with Nico House and Convo Couch, they talk about this daily. I'm not saying that there aren't people on the left that don't. I think there's a lot of Americans. In fact, when we look at polling, there is a majority, an overwhelming amount of America that agrees that we are in a dangerous place, that this is becoming a second civil war, that we are dividing people based on political ideology, and it is inconsolable. I am not saying that everyone on the left, I am not saying everyone who's a Democrat is somehow some kind of evil, bad person. I am not saying that. I am saying that there are people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who have, and people who are on Twitter, who are saying that they need to punish people, that they need to make lists of people so that they can use those lists for what reason? To punish us because we have a different opinion, to say that you can't speak out, and to use those people who are being punished as examples to the others in America to say, don't step out of line. You could be next. What about everybody who, I have thousands of people who watch this program. They've watched it in Britain, in Germany, in Peru, in Canada, Mexico, and throughout the United States. And these people are looking here, and many of them don't comment. You'd be amazed at how many people just in the last week have called me and talked to me about this program, about some of the things that we have said for the last decade. And they say they're afraid to actually come on here and to type in a message, which I am sorry. That is not me stopping you. Please, if you want to, speak out, because we are not alone. There is an overwhelming number of people who have reached out to me by phone, by email, and in person, saying they are troubled about what we are seeing happening in our nation. How certain individuals are being punished and sought to be scrubbed out. How many times have we seen on Twitter various people, just regular people, saying we need to remove people, that we have to eliminate people because they have a different ideology? That isn't healthy for America. And for every one of me, there are thousands of people who agree on the left and on the right, but they're afraid because they don't want to have to go through what I go through sometimes with the attacks, being called a racist, being called a sexist, being called a homophobe, that where I'm going to get punished, where I'm going to be denied certain rights and freedoms and privileges and quality of life. But you know what? Sometimes we need to do that. Vic Furman says he's tired of this. No justice, no peace. Isn't that what we hear all the time? Chicken Peak says, I know you're not. I'm just letting you know there are people out there who you might want to check out or get in touch with. They are being persecuted the same way. I do not doubt that. Roy Couch mentions, my wife wants me to take down our Trump flags. She is afraid. I don't want to be oppressed, and I'm keeping them up. And I thank you for that, Roy. And we have to remember, this isn't about President Trump. This is about America. You should be able to, and people do. There are Americans who fly Mexican flags. I don't agree with it, but they do. There are people who fly Iranian flags. They have flags from every part of the world in the country, Italy, Germany, everywhere. And that's okay. We have how many gay pride flags that people fly all over the place? But if I choose to have a different flag, whether it's a Confederate flag, Trump, or I don't know, the blue thin blue line flag. Oh, you must be a racist then. Why? Oh, you must be a sexist, a homophobe. You must be oppressive. You are a German from 1940. Why? Because I have a different point of view, because maybe there are elements that I see in America that you do not. Maybe I have a different way of approaching the world. Why is it that no one in America should say that I am afraid to fly a flag or have a political opinion? No one. And the fact that we have Americans that have to have that fear means we are on the wrong path. And that is not because of President Trump. It's not because of some people on the right. It is because we have seen political leaders seeking an advantage, using emotional manipulation to separate us from each other. I guarantee you that if COVID-19 had not happened, if we had not locked down our country and stopped each other from being able to have conversations, we would not be in this position right now, because we wouldn't feel like prisoners trapped in our homes, because government would not be overreaching as far as it has and it continues to do. And we see this going forward. Let's think about how bad has this gotten. Besides the fact that we see bills like Assembly Bill A416, which we have spoken about before on this show, that is now possible to even exist. Just a decade ago, you couldn't write a bill that says that just because a governor thinks you could possibly have COVID, that you need to be taken from your home and shipped off somewhere that the government says you're going to go. How is that different than the gulags that are being used right now by China? Oh, Mike, but it's different because we're in America. The same America that is persecuting people because of their political preferences, that say that they have to have lists so they can punish you, so they can fire you from jobs. And this is stuff I've been documenting for years. This isn't new. This isn't because of President Trump. We can go back. I have videos going back 10 years, articles going back 15 years. This isn't new. Vic mentions people who belong in prison: Obama, Lynch, Clinton, Pelosi, Schumer, Gillibrand, Romney, Bush, so many more, but corruption protects corruptors. That's the problem. That's what I'm talking about. Our government has become very corrupt. It's about power over the people, that you must submit to a handful of electors who are no better. I have talked to politicians in every party, in not only in New York, but across the country, that are in Congress all the way down to the local level for years. I've presented many of them in interviews here on this program. And I can tell you from personal experience and knowing these people as candidates, as regular citizens, and as elected officials, they are no smarter, they are no better than you or anyone else. They're just as dumb, they're just as uninformed, they are just as everything as anyone else. But suddenly, the moment they get elected, we are seeing more and more of them that are acting as if they are some kind of neo-nobles, some kind of higher class of Americans that can then look down upon you and tell you how to live your life. Governor Cuomo is no smarter than anyone else. He's no scientist. But when he wakes up tomorrow or today and he has runny eggs, when he has his scrambled eggs for the morning, he decides that he wants to shut down restaurants at 7 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. Because guess what? COVID is active all the time. But just in case, you know what? We're going to shut down every restaurant in New York State at 7 p.m. Or better yet, lock down the entire state, because we watched the lockdowns last year and they didn't work. But we're going to do it again. Is that really making you safer, or is that making him more powerful? And if I disagree, Twitter's going to take me off, Facebook's going to cut me off, YouTube's going to cut me off, and they'll delete me and try and eliminate me from existence. Try and turn me into a non-entity. Cut me off my family, my friends, people I've known around the world. Is that what America's about? Because that doesn't sound like freedom. I don't care who's describing it. That doesn't sound like freedom. Roy mentions your COVID status should be protected by HIPAA, just like it would be if you have HIV. Except we never made people with HIV get a passport showing, hey, I've been inoculated, or that I'm contagious. But it is being proposed, and it is most likely going to happen in the United States within the next 100 days. That should tell you something about what's going on right now, that we have gone that far. I've yet to hear anyone say everyone who has HIV is mandated to go out and get the HIV drugs and vaccinations, the medications there. Now, most people do because it's in their best interest, but that's not a requirement. And it is far deadlier than COVID. That should make you think for a moment and say, wait a minute, something's wrong. Why are we doing this? Why does this extreme exist? I mean, does that make sense, folks? I'm not saying that I'm saying this isn't the right path. I'm saying we have a problem, and it's getting worse. And it's going to be a problem. It is a growing problem. And I truly believe that some people were saying back in October, when I wrote about the 21 days to the Second Civil War, you can see that video. I have it, unless it's been removed by Facebook or YouTube or Google. People thought that we were going into a civil Cold War at that time. Now people believe it's active. There was a poll from the Washington Examiner that I just saw. 71% believe that we are approaching, if not in, a second civil war right now. That should trouble you. Roy mentions, but Cuomo gets a book deal and will have financial gain for being a dictator. Yes, he does. So does Governor Newsom and Governor Whitmer, amongst many others across this country. And that's because we are allowing them to do that. It's part of the reason why I went out of my way to say this week on I think it was Thursday, that I wrote very clearly a statement for the members of, where is it? And I want to make sure, here it is. And I want you to see this. I was very clear, writing to our elected officials and saying that they have to correct what's going on with the red flag gun protection law as one example because of its failures. Because when they are able to use this to punish people, and it has caused people to die, and it has separated families, then we are all at a loss, and any one of us could be the next victim. Because the politicians think, well, no one's paying attention, so I can get away with it. So it's okay. I mean, think about this. And I'm going to get to Okay, we are up to date with the comments, but I mean, there's also, did you hear, and how many people were paying attention? It did come out in the New York Times that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, pressed the Pentagon on safeguards to prevent Trump from ordering military action. Stop for a second and think about that. Nancy Pelosi, who has no power and is not part of the chain of command for the United States military, went to our military leaders and said, don't listen to your commander in chief. That is insurrection. You may not like President Trump. You may think he's not a good person. You may think all kinds of things. It doesn't matter. He is the commander in chief until January 20th. He is the chain of command. And for someone to say, do not listen to this president or any president for that matter, you are committing insurrection against the United States government. That is an attempted coup. In fact, going by the quote from January 8th, quote, in a phone call to the chairman, General Mark A. Miley, Mrs. Pelosi appeared to be seeking to have the Pentagon leadership essentially remove Mr. Trump from his authorities as the commander-in-chief. That could be accomplished by ignoring the president's orders or slowing them by questioning whether they were issued legally. Now, I know the New York Times is being very kind to Nancy Pelosi because they agree with her position, because they have actively been attacking President Trump since before he got elected. But the fact is, what they are describing, that conversation, is treason. That is trying to depose a duly elected president and remove him from power for no reason other than someone doesn't like his political position. She has no power to do that. You should be terrified that the Speaker of the House is usurping power, not only from the president, but from the public, and saying, hey, I want you to have essentially a military coup. And I do hope my friends in Peru, in Germany, in Britain, and in Canada, I would love to hear their thoughts about this, especially in Peru, where we have seen what military insurrections look like throughout all of South America, and they start just like this. Why don't you grab power? And then it gets worse from there. That's how we see in Venezuela, where the people were, the right of the Second Amendment were taken away from the Venezuelan people. Within 2 years of that, as reported by the New York Times, as we have covered previously, 5,200 Venezuelans were killed by the socialist government of Venezuela. There are people in Venezuela right this second starving to death or have been afflicted with measles and mumps and are trying to escape that country and, by the way, come to America because they have lost their freedoms. And it started in the same way that we are watching this happen with Nancy Pelosi right now. Whether you agree with her general politics or not, it starts the same way. And we should be terrified about that. Let me catch up. Roy mentions the Insurrection Act may have been signed 90 minutes ago. They had air traffic ground stopped, and it is suspected Trump is not in the air. Speculation, but we can hope. The Pentagon, hasn't been listened to him anyway. He effectively has no power and hasn't for a while now. He could pardon Assange, Manning, and Snowden, and it wouldn't stick. Maybe. And I'm not saying he has. I'm not saying he hasn't. And I hope that they have not tried to arrest President Trump. Because let's think about this. President Trump in 9 days, he's no longer president. What are they trying to do? Why do they need so desperately to remove him from office in 9 days? What do they think is going to happen? He's already said that he's going to peacefully transfer power. Joe Biden, for lack of anything else, has been put into the presidency. Whether you agree with that or not, whether you have doubts or questions about that or not, he's about to become our next president. And we have to punish Trump for what? They are actively seeking to remove every element of his existence. and those who supported him as well. That is a problem. Perhaps I hope I'm coming across clearly about this. My concern isn't President Trump. My concern is America. My concern is that these actions are pushing us further apart, that this is destroying our nation. And short and long term, our nation will not survive this if we do not see our leaders stop and recognize what they are doing and the implications of what they have done. Because if Nancy Pelosi can suddenly usurp her power, go to the military leaders at the Pentagon and try and have a president removed, if we do not question that, what is to stop that from happening to Biden or Kamala or anyone else? And that's terrifying, because that is exactly what we saw happen in the banana republics in South America. That's what we've seen in every dictatorship around the world. Yes, Chicken Beak, they are trying to stop President Trump from running again. They're terrified of him running again. But the problem is they're damaging the entire nation. This isn't just about him. Roy mentions they must be afraid of something. It doesn't make sense to attack Trump like this. They are terrified that President Trump might have any vestige of President Obama and every president, every ex-president, Obama, Bush, Bush 1, Bush 2, Clinton, Carter, have influence in politics around the world and in the United States. And they are able to get things done. Whether you agree with that or not is immaterial. All presidents have had that power and have that privilege. But they want to make sure that he cannot. They want to remove his power. They want to remove his influence. They basically want to tell the American people, you can't support this. You can't think this way. This is control of thought. And that is terrifying. It is worse than destroying our First Amendment rights. It is destroying our human rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, in my opinion. And those leaders must be aware of that. Nancy Pelosi needs to pay attention to this, because I'm not the only one saying this. And it's on the left as well as the right from some sources. You're hearing both of them say, you can't do this, because what you are doing is destroying this country fundamentally. Yes, you will gain power today. Yes, you may pass a law or two, but you're going to destroy everything. Mavis mentions they're trying to make sure he can't run in 4 years. Plus, they're hoping if they take him down, we'll just shut up and do what we're told. That is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to make us shut up. That's why we've been threatened over and over again. There are some people like Katrina Vanden Heuvel, who is part of the Nation's editorial director and publisher, who's out there saying that instead of using impeachment, which, by the way, there is no crime to use impeachment against, and there is no time, as she mentions, should invoke Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, barring anyone from office who took an oath and subsequently engaged in or encouraged insurrection or rebellion with a majority vote. Let's take a look at this for a second. What does the 25th Amendment actually say? Because most Americans don't actually know. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his health, death, or resignation, the vice president shall become president. The president hasn't been removed. There is no cause to remove the president. He hasn't died and he hasn't resigned. There is nothing in the 25th Amendment, as a matter of fact, if you look this up yourself, going to Cornell Law, you will see there is no case to remove President Trump. None of this applies. And to say that speaking to American people and saying you're displeased with the election and that you, like thousands, if not millions of Americans, don't believe the election irregularities were answered sufficiently, well, that's not insurrection. That's an opinion. That's not saying go and Go right now, storm that building and burn it down. We have heard that. We've heard those very words. Go there and burn down that police station. We have heard burn down that building from BLM, from Antifa. And yet we won't call them insurrectionists. We won't call them. The media has trouble even saying that it's a riot. They've been telling us for years that, no, that's just a protest. It's mostly peaceful as buildings burn in the background of CNN and MSNBC. And you want to tell me that President Trump's saying, you know what, I agree with you. I don't trust the election results. Well, guess what? Millions of Americans don't. Does that suddenly mean that we need to punish him and everyone else? I'm going to get to your comments, Chicken Beacon and Roy. Give me a second, because I also want to show you the 14th Amendment really quickly, because people don't know what these laws are. They've never looked at them. And all the links and descriptions of everything I'm talking about will be in the description on YouTube, as long as it exists on YouTube. And in the 14th Amendment, Section 3, it is stated, no person shall be senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who have previously taken an oath as member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Key words here. I want you to think about this. Engaged in insurrection or rebellion. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was in favor of and was a supporter of and is on Twitter stating, resist, revolt against the government, against President Trump. That is a rebellion against the government. President Trump was the duly elected president. She was revolting against him. Should she be removed by the 14th Amendment? Nancy Pelosi, as I just showed you from the New York Times, usurped the power, the chain of command, went well above and beyond her power, overreaching, and tried to speak to cause a military coup. That is insurrection. Should she be removed by the 14th Amendment? I don't hear anyone even talking about that, and that is a problem. Chicken Beat mentions, yeah, not disagreeing with you, but just answering your question as to why they are doing this, and you just answered it anyway, so you know. Roy mentions, I believe he could start a third party and possibly be successful. The Democrats and Republicans have been totally corrupted. A third party, I believe, could be strong for upcoming elections. Well, that's what my friend Larry Sharp believes as a member of the Libertarian Party. And he has been saying that for many, many years, as have many libertarians. But you notice the Libertarian Party, for all of their intentions, for some of the great leaders they've had, third parties haven't taken hold in America. Maybe this is the thing that makes it happen. I'm not sure that it will. I believe in everyone. There should be 15 parties. People should be able to believe what they want to believe. They could support whom they want to support. Various degrees of whether you're conservative but not as Republican, or you have these views, social or otherwise, on the right, the left, it doesn't matter. Go right ahead. Have a party. And we can vote on who is the best candidate, period. I have no problem with that. But I don't believe in this environment where you can't even be a conservative and be on Twitter, on Facebook. You can't even speak. Well, how do we think we're going to have a third party if we can't even talk on social media, which is one of the main forms of media in the world at this time? It is almost completely replaced. How many newspapers have been destroyed? Have just completely folded? How many of them have shrunk, consolidated their coverage so that your local news is not coming from you? It's coming from some person 2-3 towns over, and they have to cover 3-4 towns at a time instead of having a local newspaper and having local reporters. And we're supposed to believe that a third party will be possible in this environment? We're even saying that you have a question, like Ted Cruz did, to say that you have a question about what's going on in our government was tantamount, according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and some on the far left, as an act of insurrection, and therefore you must be guilty. That is not a world where a third party can exist. That's not even a world where one party exists. That is an autocratic government. Michael Bowie mentions, this is a violent coup that began with the fraudulent election. Trump should not concede. I can't say that. I can say that this is a problem. And maybe people, again, you're perfectly fine to disagree with me. That's why we have YouTube. You know, I say, contact us. People are watching this. You can make a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. Actually, I think right this moment that Twitter and Facebook have blocked me. Not entirely sure. And I think there's a lag on YouTube at this moment because they don't like the words that I am using and the conversation I am having with you. But what I'm asking you to do is to look at the laws and look at the dominoes that have been falling and understand that if we allow them to continue to move in this manner, we're going to destroy America. The leaders that we have are going to destroy America, and they need to pause and realize and understand very quickly, this isn't about one person. This is about the structure of the American government. This is about the structure of our nation. This is about the pursuit of life, liberty, and this is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is about our fundamental First Amendment rights to gather and to speak about the ideas that we have without being punished, without persecution. And to hold and the 10th Amendment, that we have all rights, except those that we have given to our government by law through our representatives in Congress, and that we can hold them accountable when they violate these laws, when they violate the Constitution. Let me be very clear here, because I'm sure someone's going to say, well, Mike, you're calling for violence. No, I have not. Again, let me say it. As I said at the beginning, I denounce and reject anyone who uses fear, intimidation, violence, or the threat of violence to cause others to submit against their will. I do not support that. I am not calling on that. But I am making people aware. I am pointing out what we are seeing happening right now. People that are redefining the 25th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. They are twisting our laws and our regulations and our statutes to try and create this environment which enables them to have more power than they were ever envisioned to have at the cost of our freedom. And I am against that. And whether or not this is immediately going to be available on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, I'm going to keep speaking until they get rid of me, which may not take long in this environment. It may not take long at all. And that's terrifying, because that shouldn't be the case. But we have already seen hundreds, actually thousands removed from Twitter. We've seen them removed from Facebook, from YouTube, not just in the last several years, but right in the last week. And tell me, does anyone who is watching this believe that this is not going to continue and get worse over the next 100 days? No More Me mentions, this is the biggest historical moment in the United States, possibly in the world. This is the biggest moment in the world, because as we have heard from Eduardo Dibos, who I was speaking to down in Peru, who is actively seeking to create more democracy in his nation, and he and others in Peru follow the United States as the shining example of democracy and how well it can work in the world. Guess what? They're watching this right now. And if it isn't working here, why is anyone going to have confidence anywhere else in the world? How are they going to take down dictators like in North Korea, in Iran, in China, Venezuela, Cuba? How are they going to fight against that with the hope and the idea that they could have a better life if we're watching in the United States that people are actively destroying those lives? The Oogly Arch, No More Me says, the Oogly Arch are being filtered out and they know it. Yes, and that's why we need term limits. Oh God, we need term limits more than ever before. We need to instill term limits in this nation right now. Think about it. How bad is this getting? And people say, Mike, you just don't understand. We're just going to improve things. We're fixing things. Parler, which is still up for the moment, but won't be as of midnight, Dan Bongino, who I've met before over at CPAC, put this article up, and I want to show it to you. Here it is. Nope, that's not it. Here it is. Tucker. CNN is trying to force Fox News off the air. CNN has actively gone out and to actively silence a news media company, a credible news media company. Think about that for a second. This is worse than the blackout. Well, it's as bad as the blackout that Twitter and Facebook used to silence the New York Daily News, the second largest newspaper in the nation. Or was it the Post? When they were talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, which a month later was proven to be correct. All of the things they reported were credible and proven to be correct 1 month later, which just happened to be after the election. And this is now CNN actively trying to remove a credible news agency. Now, CNN doesn't have to like Fox News. Yes, they're competing for your eyeballs. Yes, Fox has a right spin versus CNN's left spin. Yes, both of them have had news stories that were proven to be incorrect. Yes, CNN has been proven multiple times to have made up stories and got it wrong. The New York Times has been proven many times to have writers who have just made up stories and have published falsehoods, absolute falsehoods. But even the Atlantic most recently had some where they just made up a story about President Trump and the military that no one would verify. No one. No credible sources to it. But that's all okay. But now we're seeing CNN is trying to actually eliminate a credible news agency, as credible as any other news agency in the United States at this time, because they don't like their politics. We should be angry and speaking out about this. The fact that Parler is being removed at the same time tells you that this is not isolated. This is not just about, Parler or Fox News or President Trump or Republicans. This is about the way of life in America. We are being told exactly how to think and how to speak and how to live. We are being told that if you step out of line, you will be punished. And that is not American. I don't care what your ideology is. And that is how we create a coup and a coup of our government and a oligarchy, which would, and for those who don't know that term, a small group of individuals who run an entire nation. Basically a dictatorship with more than one person. This is how that starts. You don't have to like Fox News. Don't watch them. You don't have to like CNN or MSNBC. But that doesn't mean you get to remove them because you don't like them. But that is what we are hearing from the news. That is what we're hearing from our elected leaders right now. We don't like you. We don't like what you're saying. You have to go away. And yes, today that's going against conservatives and Republicans, but tomorrow that could be moderate Democrats. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to have a socialist government. If you don't believe in the Green New Deal, if you don't agree with her views about waiving, college debt or universal health care or minimum wage or anything, you are next on the chopping block. You will be removed as well. The same things that are being done to us will be done to you. There is no protected group except those who are actually in power. No More Me says, you're exactly right. I've heard Amazon is going down at midnight. No, not Amazon, Parler. Amazon owns the servers that actually allow Parler to run. Like most of the internet, people have websites. I have my sites, as an example, that run on servers. Now, I have my website, which is mvos.com, which is separate of anyone else, but the servers are owned by GoDaddy. If GoDaddy suddenly went out of business or decided to turn off the switch, my site would go down. Very few people actually own their own servers and therefore own everything with it. Google owns a massive number of the servers. Most people, like on Wix or all these small make your own website things, you aren't owning it. That is a site that is on a server held by Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon. And when they say, oh, we don't like what you have to say, they turn it off and you no longer have the right to speak. So again, that goes back to what we were saying before. Oh, well, make your own. Well, I did. What happens when you say, I did make my own, like Parler has said? I did. Like Fox News has said, they created their own news channel to say what they wanted, to cover the news in the manner that they wanted to, with their voices speaking about commentary that they wanted to have and audiences wanted to hear, and in fact became the most watched news channel in America for decades, for over a decade. And when they did that, we're now seeing them say, well, we're going to turn you off. You no longer have that right. So it's not even just, oh, well, if you don't like it, go and do your own thing. It's, you don't get to do anything. How is that not troubling to everyone? I don't care if you're left, right, or center. You should be terrified right now about that. That is not America. Chickenback mentions we're trying to throw a California. We're trying to throw a California coup in Venezuela. The narrative that it's the socialist government is pure deep state propaganda, and it's the same it's for the same reasons as always the oil. Okay, that's an interesting point of view. And oil I can get into in a different time, but yet she had the chance to push for Medicare for all and withhold the vote for Pelosi, and she didn't. All of them voted for her. And Pelosi is a neocon if there ever was one. We have problems. I know. Just remember when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told us we didn't have enough time to read the bill, which they didn't. The omnibus bill, a spending bill, which included, was not separate of, but included the COVID relief bill, which spent most of its money, $1.4 trillion, was spent on funding Pakistan, giving them $10 million for a gender program, whatever that is, no one knows, or paying $845 million to the government of the country of Jordan so that they can run their government. For whatever reason, I don't understand it. And tens of millions of other wasteful and useless programs, and gave less than half of that money to the United States people, you and me. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was livid about the fact, along with many others, including Rand Paul, saying, we don't have enough time to read this. We got the bill at, 1 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock they had a vote. They had 5 hours to read a 5,593-page document. And she's right. That was a problem. No one could read it in that much time. And the answer was, oh, but you're going to vote for it anyway. And she did. At least Rand Paul had the balls to stand up and say no. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't. So again, who's protecting you? Oh, she talked a big game and then folded. She did what she was told to do. So you mean to tell me you're going to be more protected than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? You're going to be more protected than the president? That they're doing this for you. It's in your best interest. Every time in my lifetime, 52 years, almost 53, that I have heard the government say, we're going to do this to help you. We're going to protect you. I have watched the biggest fiasco ever happen before my eyes. Whether that's people trying to recover from a hurricane down in Louisiana, the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake in California, or any number of other problems. This is important, folks. This is really important. And, I don't know how many days left I have before they get rid of me, but I am pretty sure they will. And then they'll come after you next. I have 513 some odd people. By the way, and I thank you. We broke 500, and I thank you, because if you like this, if you like any part of what we're speaking about, if you like the ability to share in the free speech that we all have in this nation, please do like, share, and most of all, subscribe. Because as long as we exist, the more people that subscribe, the more their algorithms push us out, and it's harder for them to shadow ban us. Not that they can't remove us. Oh, they probably can and will. But it makes it harder until that moment, and we can reach more people and let people think for themselves. Notice, we're not telling you what you should or shouldn't believe, but I am definitely telling you these are the facts that are happening and that we have to have a conversation about and we have to be prepared for. Chicken Beak says, quote, livid on Twitter, but voted for it. Yeah, that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But we see that, as I said, and you can go to various sources like David Harris, who's talking about the ban on Parler right now. And again, this is a ban not on Parler. This is a ban on you being able to speak. This is a ban on having thoughts of your own. For you going out and saying, I don't like and I don't want Mark Zuckerberg or Jim Dorsey to be able to control what I say or what I believe, and being force-fed their ideas down my throat. And when you say that, they decided, oh, you went somewhere else? You're having this conversation with people somewhere else. Oh, well, we have the answer. We're going to remove that source so that you cannot go forward. This is what big tech is doing. This is controlling the way people speak and think. And it's not limited there. Don't think it's limited there. Don Winslow, who happens to be a blue check on Twitter, and this is how deep this is, who is the internationally best-selling author of The Cartel, The Force, The Border, and Savages, author of 3 New York Times Critics of the Year's books, has said, Clarence Thomas's wife supported rioters before the siege. Quote, love MAGA, end quote. And why is he bringing that up? Because people are saying the FBI needs to investigate her and all the people who are involved. I don't know if a lot of people saw this. I want you to see exactly what we're talking about. Because I have, from Yahoo News, the article, Friday, January 8th, Clarence Thomas's wife supported rioters before siege, quote, love MAGA. Okay, and this is from Demika Inman. She said, God bless each of you. Now, I want you to see exactly what we're talking about here. What was she saying? She said, where is it? I want to get it right, and I had it here. That she was so evil as to say to the people, here it is. She says, watch MAGA crowd today, best with right side broadcasting. And then C-SPAN for what the Congress does starting at 1 p.m. today. Love MAGA people. Tell me if you believe saying, watch a crowd. I love you guys for standing up for what you believe, your First Amendment right to assemble. How does that incite anything? How is that evil? How is that something that needs to be investigated by the FBI? Think about that for a second. Someone said, that they love that people are standing up for making America great. that someone loves America being good, that someone is supporting people who are doing the First Amendment, peacefully protesting. And at the time that that went out, it was a peaceful protest. No one had gone anywhere. And she said she loved that. And that is seen as being insightful. And that is something that is part of some kind of conspiracy. And she needs to be investigated by the FBI. And her husband, who happens to be on the Supreme Court, has to resign. This is why they're saying this, to force a member of the Supreme Court off the bench. Because his wife said, I love you. This is the alternative way to being able to say, we want to pack the court. We're also going to get rid of the people who are on the court. And we're going to get rid of people in Congress like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Josh Hawley. We're going to get rid of these people because they're the people who are opposing us, telling you what you can and can't do in your life. Who cares that the actual Constitution says life, the pursuit, that we are to be protected for our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Forget about the First Amendment being able to peacefully assemble and our right to speak. No. We have to get rid of these people because they said, I love you. What greater crime could there be than saying, I love you to the people they don't like, to the people that the far left, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and people like Nancy Pelosi, who are absolutely looking for power. You said, I love you to the people they don't like, to people that Facebook and Twitter, Jim Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, that they don't like, the CEO of Google don't like, Amazon does not like, and therefore they need to be punished, which means you need to be punished. And if they are going after these people, the wife and Supreme Court justice, a president, corporations and businesses with hundreds of thousands of shareholders, and they're getting rid of those people. You at your job down at the diner or over at the garage, or maybe you're, I don't know, a taxi driver, a musician. What power do you have? How are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to stop them from coming for you next? Maybe through a red flag action, which means that they're going to say, oh, you might be a danger to you and everyone in the community because your kid had a scraped knee, because I saw something on Twitter or Facebook before you got removed. You're dangerous, so we're going to send a SWAT team to your door. And you think, oh, well, they wouldn't do that. They have done that. They are doing that. It is happening. They're just hiding the numbers, which is why on January 8th, I said to our leaders in New York State, you better show people this. You better tell people that how many people have you gone to and destroyed their families because someone said, oh, I think they could be dangerous. I don't like their tweet. I don't like their Facebook post. So I want you to go and investigate them. Bring a SWAT team to their door. Destroy their business and their homes and their livelihood. Which I did say on January 8th, and I sent out to them. And at this moment, not one member of the New York State Assembly or Senate have responded to me. But then again, that was on Friday, so let's see what they say on Monday, because I am not letting that go. Let me get back to some of the comments. No More Me says, politicians are like car dealers. They just want to sell their BS so they can get their cut. Poppy mentions, hi, Poppy. Yes, late, but it's always good to have you here. Tony Normio. Hello, Michael. Love the show. Thank you, Tony. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Whether you agree with me or not, I am happy to have you here with me. And that Facebook hasn't completely cut it off yet. No More Me mentions, I remember watching them drag Clarence Thomas' name through the dirt. Really pissed me off. Pissed me off as well. What did he call it? A lynching. A lynching. Modern day lynching. Who did he say that to? Joe Biden. Oh, but Joe Biden's for black people. Really? Are you sure? The same man who says he would not let his kid go to school because it would be a racial jungle. You sure that the same man who says that if you don't do what he says, you're not black? and he's the racial savior of America? He's going to unite us? The same man who doesn't believe that some of us are even what we are? He doesn't think I'm black or Hispanic. Why? Because I didn't vote for him. Oh, but then I have the problem. Rather than me being, I'm an American, and I can to choose based on the facts that I have in front of me. But I am the bad guy because I didn't do what he told me to do because I'm not a Democrat like I've been told I must be. Because I have my own freedom and make my own decision, well, then I'm just a bad, evil person. Rather than they're trying to control my thoughts and my actions, which should be opposed by everyone in America. We should all be angry about that and say, no, you can't do that. Not that you have to believe what I believe, but that you can't stop me from having that belief just because you don't like it. Poppy mentions people better wake up real fast. The time is now. Can't kick it down the road anymore. No, I agree. I don't believe we're going to be able to kick. This is not going down the road anymore. This is now. This is the reality we are dealing with right now. They are trying to remove news stations, Fox News, as I've just shown you. They're trying to remove alternate means of communication like Parler. They're going to go after everybody. I don't believe this is over. This is the beginning of the problem. And I'm really sad because back in October and even before then, we've been talking about this for about 3 years now, that we've been warning that there is a civil war coming. And I'm really sad, and I wanted to be wrong to hear that it didn't happen, but it is. I have every belief. But if there is someone on the left that wants to say, oh, Mike, you just don't understand, please do explain. Oh, speaking of which, here comes Richard Lawrence, who happens to be a troll, and he loves to troll this program. So Lawrence the Troll says, ironic, talking about censorship as you live stream to your 3 followers on multiple platforms. You may want to take a look at the numbers, Larry. You don't know what you're talking about, once again. But that's okay. No More Me says, I just can't believe the blindness of some people. And I understand. Now, Larry wants to talk about hate speech. Larry wants to silence speech. He is a troll. And he has actively tried to silence me before. He wants to try and silence me now. Because I'm talking about something he doesn't like. That is censorship. That is the problem. Not that I've never, you know what, as much of a troll as Larry is, Lawrence Richards, who also goes by another name, which I won't give credit to until he pops it up here so he can continue to talk and make it seem like more than one person's here. But Larry the Troll, I have never silenced him. I have never stopped him from being able to speak. But he doesn't want to give me that same right. He doesn't want to respect that part of the First Amendment. Rather, he would say, well, you are a problem. You're a racist, a sexist, a homophobe. You are the problem, and you need to be silenced. That's what his voice is, and that is what he has said on this program more than once. I'm glad that he's here right now because he helps to show this is the problem. Not that you disagree with me. You can perfectly fine to disagree with any part of what I've said or any of the evidence that I've shown you. We've never questioned that. The problem is when you try to silence people, that we try to separate people, when you try to label people with words like racist and homophobe and sexist and whatever ist and ism that you may think of, so that you can control their ability to live in our society and to have the same quality of life as everyone else. That is something we should oppose. And that is something that is dangerous. And that is why we are coming closer and closer to a second civil war. That's why we have to be upset and speak out about the censorship that is going on around us and the fact that we are seeing our nation destroyed. No, Larry, you troll. Saying that civil war is coming is not treason. That isn't inciting violence, which we haven't been paying attention to, as I've said several times, and I will say it once more for you, Larry, you troll. I will say it to you again. I denounce and I reject anyone who uses fear, intimidation, violence, or the threat of violence to cause others to submit. We reject that. But to be aware of a problem is not the same as to incite a problem. Larry, you troll, you are using the same kind of logic that is being used against members of Congress, business leaders, and our president to try and silence their voices. Oh my God, you said something I don't agree with. You said something that we have seen spoken about in every single news media, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. We've watched it in all the media talking about this potential and this problem. And because I've said it and you don't like it, I am a problem and we have to silence your voice. No, it doesn't work that way. That's not what free speech is, and that's not how free speech is protected in this nation. Larry, you troll. I have not incited civil war. I am making people aware of what's going on. Hello, and thank you for joining us. As we mentioned, folks, you always can call into the program, and we have a guest here, and what is your name?
It's Jason. Hey,
Hi.
Mike.
Hi, Jason. What's going on?
Well, I had, a few thoughts. I mean, I was going to say it's very ironic that we were literally talking about the different servers that Parler was on, and I was kind of trying to list through my head of all the major ones, and I'm like, yeah, I think Amazon has it, but maybe they'll end up cutting it off, and then sure enough, the following day, what do? They, they're cutting them off. It's just unbelievable, how far they're going with this. And the other thought too, though, is that even if they get their own servers, one thing that people aren't thinking about is that if you have a service, provider like Spectrum, they could immediately basically block you from actually being able to access their website or their IP. And quite frankly, I don't think that there's going. I mean, people can complain about it, but I think that, right now, the way things are, it's going to be a slow walk for them to get themselves back up online.
Well, it is, but I want to mention there are alternatives coming out there. Right now, a friend of mine, I just want you to know, a friend of mine, Frank Johnson, he's created Freedom Forum, which is a replacement for Facebook. It's just something him and a few other small investors put money together. They're trying to put it together to let it grow as an alternative. And it may or may not be successful. I have joined on there, as many others have been joining on there, because, and this is not controlled by Amazon or one of the other servers like you're mentioning, so it shouldn't be able to be turned off. And I wish him the best, and I am supporting him 110% on this. But again, the problem is, we have people like Larry the Troll who are attacking us, trying to eliminate that free speech. But go on.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make some observations, a couple thoughts about the situation at the Capitol. And the reason is, I have two perspectives that I was thinking about. One was kind of more or less the commentation from the political commentators, the conservatives and the Republicans, about the actual individuals who invaded into the Capitol themselves. And there seemed to be one thing that actually bothered me, was generally a lot of individuals try to project their own feelings and thoughts and how they feel inside to what is associated with these individuals who broke into the place. And one of the things that I realized was happening is that it was nearly almost, it wasn't that it was a sort of rationalization. It wasn't making it, okay for what they did, but there was a connection there that I think was just not good, because the point I'm going to make is that these individuals were crazy. You can't rationalize with somebody who, actually thought that what they were going to do was actually going to turn out positively in any way. Normal, rational people don't do that sort of thing, and believe that there's going to be a positive, outcome.
I don't think that's what they were thinking, though.
Huh?
I don't think that's what the people in D.C. were thinking. And I know people who were down in D.C., not in the actual storming of the Capitol, but people who were at the protests. And they weren't there to go storm anything. This wasn't, and I think we need to make it very clear, because the media is making it unclear that the people who went to Washington, D.C., hundreds of thousands of people, they gathered together to say, there is a problem in our nation. We're not secure in the election that happened. We want to be secure in America. There's a problem. And it's been now said that, oh, no, they came down to cause a riot. No, they didn't. That was emotion just pouring loose. BLM gets together and Antifa gets together, and they advertise the fact that they're going to actually commit crimes and violate people's rights and destroy property. But that's not the same thing as what we saw in D.C. So I think it just needed to be said. But go on.
No, I mean, the thing was, is that's the problem, though, is like I said, you have a group of individuals who are peacefully protesting. Those were the ones, and when Trump and Giuliani were, saying what they were saying, they wanted them to go out there, speak loudly, make their point, and be heard, and, now you've got these individuals who obviously in the media are telling you that it's completely the opposite, that their entire intent was for them to literally kick the door down. And you have to be an insane person to honestly believe that. And the thing is they're using that rhetoric to silence everybody. And
they're
even
trying
when
to. They're trying to use that.
Look at how they ended up the justification. I don't know if you've read this, but the justification for banning Trump on Twitter was surely insane, because what they did, they conflated. They literally he basically goes out and makes a statement afterwards, and he's trying to, talk to basically his voters, and he calls everybody patriots. Well, what does Twitter do? Twitter basically says that the patriots were the individuals, he's calling the individuals who broke into the Capitol as patriots, and then they ban that tweet. And then Trump sends another tweet out about the inauguration and says that he's not going to go to it. Well, just by him saying he's not going to it, Twitter made the assumption that by him saying that he's not going to be there means that the activists can now go safely and terrorize the inauguration because Trump will be safe. And by using that stretch, that was their justification for actually banning him. And those were actual statements released by Twitter themselves.
I understand. I understand that. But you got to remember, this is like what we're seeing with the red flag laws, which is why I use it as the corollary. It's denying people due process. It's here's our reasoning. It's like Larry the Troll. Oh, you are bad because I say you're bad, because I don't like what you're saying. That's what Larry is saying. Larry the Troll. Oh, you must want there to be riots. You must think that there is these riots were okay. And you're just an evil person because I don't like what you're saying. And that's what they're doing, so as to try and then say, and for your protection, we're going to take away your rights. And that is stupid. And that is anti-American. And that is a problem. And that is causing more separation of the public and the people, I believe, and as polls are showing, than it's not uniting people, it's separating us. And that is something that has definitely reached a boiling point, I believe. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I wanted to get your opinion on something else here. The situation when Biden and Harris came out, mm-hmm. and basically their first, word out of their mouth is that, look it, if these happen to be, black protesters, then the police would have taken harsher action versus white ones. And, I thought one of the things that was interesting about this is there's two parts of it. Obviously, the fact that it's just blatant racism that they used, to blame the situation. The other point that I noticed, though, is they conveniently basically leave out the top brass, because I haven't seen yet, and I might be wrong, but I mean, the FBI, did give notification, and then apparently the top guys up at the, who were, part of the, working, to secure it, also had notification and were given the ability to actually have the National Guard there, but apparently they refused to do so.
No, they didn't. Let me correct that. They didn't. Okay. They didn't refuse. So, the mayor of Washington, D.C. limited and tied the hands of the National Guard by her request, and also the police on the ground, taking away their ability to be armed and limiting their responses that they could have. They purposefully stopped that. So there could have been a more of protection of the Capitol. There could have been more of a preparation, but they were told by the leadership, who happened to be Democrats, not to do it. So there is a difference there.
Okay, yeah. So there's definitely a difference, and that's good to clarify that. So, but the bottom line though is it looks like the situation was the guys on the ground, and this is the thing that really kills me. So here you have all these top guys who refuse to give proper security and basically proper equipment to the individuals who knew or they didn't know, but they were given something that the FBI and the top brass knew that they could potentially become overwhelmed with, right? And so meanwhile, you got Biden and Harris blaming the individuals on the ground who did not have the capacity to actually deal with that crowd. And it just amazes you, too, because when you look at what happened, I mean, you have a police officer died. You have, over 50, officers were massively injured. And then you have Biden and Harris saying that they're a bunch of freaking white supremacists, for not doing their jobs and stopping them. And it's just like when you look at that and you're just like, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, you're not going to blame the incompetence of the upper, part that, is doing all the ruling. You're going to blame the bottom guys who are doing all the fighting in the trenches.
Of course not, because if they were to do that, that wouldn't allow for the separation, the demand that we submit, because this isn't about let's unite. It's submit. This is about submission to his will, to the will of a small group of elites who have a very different idea of America. I lost one of my cameras. Bear with me a moment, folks. So my screen's frozen for a second, so bear with that. There. Nope, I lost both cameras. I will fix that. But go on, and I want to fix my camera, so go ahead. Yeah,
so I mean, like I said, it's one of those things too. When you hear this, and people actually go, "Oh yeah, they're probably right. They didn't use force." And the thing is that the crazy thing is that you don't see a lot of people asking the questions of where their line of thinking goes, because obviously, if the police are given orders, pretend if there was, black protesters, they're going to use one set of force, and then with these protesters, they would use another set of force. The question is that who was the individual that was commanding them? But it's never that way. It blatantly is, they make it seem like, no, it's a bunch of individuals, doing whatever they want, and they are all racist themselves, and it's just like, like I said, it's frustrating because the connection isn't being made that way.
Well, that's one of many problems, and it's about the separation. This is all about control. This is all about control, and this is about silencing people that they don't like. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Trying to get my camera back up as we speak.
Yeah, sure. And, one other thing, too, about this that kills me is that, all of a sudden now they're into justice and hunting all these people down and going, and they're saying, oh, why'd they get out? But the real irony behind this is just that really kills me even the most is the fact that besides for the individuals who actually physically attacked the police officers and actually broke in and stole possessions, a majority of these individuals who basically just fouled in tail, I mean, they don't even get more than a misdemeanor. I mean, we're talking about basically they get cut a appearance ticket or out the door, and then later in the end, I mean, it's probably like a $500 fine, and that's the end of it.
No, it wasn't even a $500 fine. Kamala Harris and members of the Biden administration team gathered together $35 million to pay off fines and to pay for people's bail. So it cost them nothing. In other words, they encouraged them to go out. We're talking about BLM. We're talking about Antifa. We're talking about the protests that destroyed Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, Austin, Colorado, Rochester, New York City. They literally encouraged them to turn right around and do that again. And in fact, we saw that lead to one of the deaths of the 30 deaths that were committed by the self-proclaimed and acknowledged Antifa activists who walked up from a garage, walked up on two Trump supporters and shot them shot one of the men dead on tape. That's what they encouraged, both by like people like Ralph Nader, Nadler, Representative Nadler, who said, no, Antifa is a myth. And then that very same Antifa, those operatives went out and killed someone, just like they did in Indianapolis when they killed, what's her name? Jessica Dottie Whitaker. So this is a terrifying time because we have seen this kind of preferential treatment, this ignorant, not even ignoring, obfuscation of the reality has led to deaths. And now we're seeing it lead to death on social media and isolation and people being fired and threats of people being tracked down for even more punishment. It's like what we see with the red flag laws. There is no due process. There is no day in court. There is no protection or presumption of innocence. You're a Republican. You're a conservative. You're a libertarian. You're not a progressive. So we're going to punish you in the worst ways that we can. And that's terrifying to me. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, there's massive irony, obviously, with all of this situation as well. Because, I mean, one of the things that, a lot of the police, I think even the sheriffs in our area were pushing for, they wanted to actually make like that rioting act or, so those individuals who actually broke into the Capitol, it'd be a felony at least. But like I said, it's only a misdemeanor charge at best with half those guys in there. Meanwhile, the Democrats are going crazy and they want to throw every single book at them. And guess what? They're the ones who basically wrote the laws, and now these individuals could just run free. So, I mean,
where are the prosecutors, the district attorneys who in Washington, D.C., where we saw protesters for BLM and Antifa and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow and Citizen Action, the far left, when they burned down a church and they got arrested and they were let loose and no charges were placed against them. No, that was okay. That happened in D.C. We've seen Antifa go down to Washington, D.C. and destroy buildings and endanger people's lives, and not one of them were punished. And yet they want to say that this is something that is cataclysmic suddenly. It's because it happened to them. And I'm not saying, oh, well, because of that. I'm saying how can we have a nation? A nation is a nation because of its laws, like the Constitution, the amendments, our laws. And if there are no laws, if the laws are treated separately, different people get treated different ways, and under that same exact law, then that is not a nation. That is the Wild West. That is an autocracy, a dictatorship, or oligarchy. It's not freedom, in my opinion.
No, like I said, the hypocrisy is insane, Mike. I mean, when you're talking about in D.C. all the flames burning up, like they're trying to pin Trump as having this rhetoric he actually incited it and told them to actually go and burn the place down. Meanwhile, hours before those fires in D.C. happened, you have all these politicians kumbaya, hand in hand, as they're screaming out, if we don't get what we want, we're going to burn it down. And sure, what happens? 2 hours later, boom, it burns down. Do you think anybody's pointing to politicians saying, hey, you guys might be actually culpable, for this happening? No, it doesn't happen that way.
Isn't that what we've heard Antifa and BLM and all the far left thing all summer long? Oh, we're going to burn it down. We're going to burn it down. They don't believe we don't agree with your laws. We don't agree with your viewpoints. We're going to burn it down. And I know that one of the people that were part of those crowds saying that was Larry the Troll. He's admitted it to me before. He's put it on here before. He loves that. So again, it's the extremism. It's the separation of laws. It's the fact that there is no due process. There is a lack of trust. I've been saying this for months. A lack of trust. Before I go further, I want to open up the line in case anyone else wants to call in. But I thank you, Jason, for calling in because you made some great points. And I do thank you for always for being part of it.
Yep.
It's this I've been saying this for a long time. We want to talk about why is there so many people who think there could be a second civil war? Why do we see a breakdown in our government and in our society? Why are we seeing the big tech companies come out there and they're trying to impose their will? What is it that Ted Cruz said? He said, big tech's purge, censorship, and abuse of power is absurd and profoundly dangerous. If you agree with tech's current biases, that Iran is good and they can allow the Ayatollah Khomeini to wish death upon the American people, but Trump is bad, ask yourself, what happens when you are the next person disagreeing? Why should a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires have a monopoly on political speech? And it goes even further than that. Why should they have a monopoly on your life and the quality of your life? And why are we allowing politicians who are more than willing, as we have seen with Nancy Pelosi, to go on out and violate the chain of command, to usurp her position and to try and take over, to cause a military coup to happen, as we have seen, and I showed you. How is it we can, and this was reported again by the New York Times, that that's what she did. How can we have trust and faith in our government? We need to stop this. We need to stop trolls like Larry, and we need to stop the trolls on the left, the progressive leaders of tomorrow, the Democratic Socialists of America, especially the chapter in Ithaca, the Citizen Action, the BLM. We need to stop these people right now before we lose more of America and we lose more of our freedoms, because I believe that is what the direction that we are going in. And the fact that we are watching Republicans roll over because they're afraid, oh, we're going to get some bad press, or they might be part of those who are getting eliminated from social media, that they are rolling over and letting the left go rampant, and that is destroying our nation. I truly see it that way. Larry, I'll call you a troll anywhere I want. You are a troll. And why are you threatening me with violence? Why are you trying to threaten me? You don't like what I have to say? That's all right. I don't like a lot of things you said. But you're the one who's now threatening me with violence? But, but you're the peaceful left. There goes your Antifa roots showing. But anyway, on this program, we don't let threats of violence. It's not the first time. I've had lots of people who've threatened me, who said they want to kill me. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time. We've endured that many years, and we're not afraid. And this program will continue to go on, because free speech doesn't stop because of the threats and attempts at intimidation, the threats of violence, or even the actual act of violence does not stop free speech. It will not. Not as long as I can help it. Not as long as you can help it. As long as we can continue to speak and share our thoughts and views. And I hope that those who are watching this, if you have liked this, if you support this, please do like, share, subscribe. Let's try and let's work the algorithms in our favor. Let's fight against the shadow banning that is actively happening. And until the moment that they cut us off, which they probably will at some time soon, let's go out there and reach as many people as possible and let them know we are not alone. We all have these ideas, whether you're on the left, the right, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian. We all share some of these very same thoughts, that we believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we believe in free speech. We believe in the right to due process. We believe in the right to privacy. We believe in the right that we have all the power except that which we give the government, and that our elected officials are our servants, not the other way around. I don't know anyone who believes in America that disagrees with these absolute tenets of our government, of our nation. If you think those are wrong, then you don't believe in America. You might believe in communism, you may believe in China or North Korea or Venezuela or Cuba, but that's not what we have in America. But that's fine. That's just fine. I don't know. It's troubling. You know, it's very troubling, folks. Even as I've been attacked here on this program, as I've been threatened on this program, and trust me, it happens in real life too. It happens with people like Messiah Andrews, part of the Antifa cell, part of the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, or plot in the region. I've been threatened before. I've had their members threaten it before. But the answer is we don't back down. See, that's what we're seeing right now. Moderate Democrats, we're seeing Republicans, they're backing down. They're afraid. Oh my God, look, the media is in a landslide. We're seeing the big tech attack people. We're seeing people lose their livelihoods. I can't speak up or I will be next. No, the answer is there's more of us than there are of them. Big tech doesn't work. They don't exist unless we support it, which is, again, one of the reasons why I'm saying let's reach out and support things like my good friend Frank Johnson, who put together the Freedom Forum website because he believes in free speech. Let's go out there and protect Parler and people like Dan Bongino and many others that I know who are on there, including myself, and protecting our free speech and our rights. We have to support them because big tech isn't as powerful as it likes to think. It's only powerful because we use it. No more and no less. Mark Zuckerberg is not the arbiter of what is and is not the way that we should think and live. Not even close. Neither is James Dorsey. And the CEO of Google, which I can't remember his name right now, so I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. They aren't the beginning and end of America. They never were. In fact, if it weren't for America and the freedoms that we provide, they would never be enabled enough to be able to have the businesses they have. Try and open that up in China or Russia or North Korea or Venezuela or Cuba, because you can't. Chickbee says, we need to get these labels sorted properly, probably more than anything, the right idea of who's left and who's left's ideas and who's right is all over the board. I don't think it is. I think it's pretty clear, or at least I've tried to be very clear. I believe I don't think there's so much of a difference between Democrats. I mean, the rank and file average Democrat. I speak with them all the time. I see them all over the place. I have conversations with them. They call me and contact me about this program, and they do it in person as well. And many of the elected officials who are Democrats that I know. Do I agree with them always? No, but they're not the same thing as progressives. In fact, when you ask progressives if they're a Democrat, they will tell you, no, they are not. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not a Democrat. She's a democratic socialist. There's a difference. If you ask members of BLM and Plot and Antifa if they're Democrats, they will tell you, no, they're not. They're progressives. They have some entirely different ideology. They don't believe in the American system, which is why we hear Antifa and the rest of them say they want to destroy this. That's what we're seeing, and this is what is happening. When we look at Jack Dorsey and what he's done with Twitter, what we see, what Mark Zuckerberg is doing with Facebook, when we look at what's happening with Amazon right now from Jeff Bezos, these are people who are looking to destroy the freedoms and the quality of life that we have right now. And they are causing the separation. And the reason why for months now, the major media, as well as this program, which we've been saying it for years, has been warning about the fact that our nation is becoming more and more divided and the potential for a second civil war is growing, is because of these progressives, not the rank and file Democrats for the most part, not for conservatives or libertarians or Republicans. That's really not it. Let's see. I want to get back to some of the comments here. Jason mentions definitions make the difference. They do. It's not about the far left. To an extent, Poppy, I think it is. I do think it somewhat. I agree. A liberal, and again, that's why I'm not saying liberals, progressives, they are not the same thing as a liberal. People use the terms interchangeably, but they're not the same. Liberals are more classically Democrats, and they're people that are more or less moderate, I've found over and over again. And I know sometimes when I speak about Democrats, I'm speaking about the leadership of the Democratic Party. And perhaps that's my fault of language and the fault of many. When we're talking about people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when we're talking about Representative Nadler, we're talking about Anthony Brindisi, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi, and we say Democrats because that's the main party affiliation, but really what we're talking about is the subset, the little splinter group of the Democratic Party, which happen to be progressives. And that's a big difference. No, I understand, Poppy, and you're not the only one who's asking that question of me and of others. And you know what? It does need that clarification. And I do, from time to time, try and make sure that's clear, but it's not always heard often enough. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's important that there is that difference in that delineation and that understanding. Because I know lots of, again, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. So I always like to point to that, besides the Fourth, Fifth, First, Second Amendments, 10th Amendment. But looking at guns, there are millions of Americans. Just last year, over 5 million Americans were first-time firearm owners. And these people have to now deal with things like the New York SAFE Act or the red flag laws that are in 17 states that Joe Biden has indicated that he wants to make national. They have to deal with the fact that government at the local level and potentially within the next 100 days at the federal level is literally without due process taking away their right to protect themselves, something that they thought government could not do. And that's why they decided to become a firearm owner and why they're getting trained and why they're part of the 160 million, if not more, Americans, 1 out of 2 Americans that own a firearm right now and have done so for the history of America. And that's a very important thing, that they are suddenly facing this new challenge to their freedom and to their protection of themselves and their families. Those women who are terrified that because of COVID, there are those individuals who, because of domestic abuse, drug and alcohol abuse, mental instability, are willing to harm others. And they need a way to protect themselves. And now they are facing, for the first time, the problem that we've been talking about on this program, and other people and others have been saying, and this is why these laws don't work, because a cop won't be around the corner. If Larry the Troll actually decides to make good on his threat to me and try and cause me physical harm, there's not going to be a police officer necessarily right around the corner to try and protect me. What am I going to do if he brings a bunch of his BLM Antifa friends to come to my home and break my windows? What am I going to do? What happens in the 3 minutes or more that it could take for the police to arrive? That's a question that a lot of women ask themselves. That's a lot of questions that families are asking each other as COVID has made this a problem and really magnified this for a lot of people. And now we're watching that same element of control where you don't get to protect yourself. You don't get to protect your family. You don't get to make choices for your family. The government's going to do it. Quote unquote, the government. And in particular, the people who are part of the right think, the people who are on the right side of history, the people who want power and want power over you, like Andrew Cuomo, Governor Newsom, Governor Whitmer, and I would even say Kamala Harris. Joe Biden, I don't even know if he knows what day of week it is. And Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, absolutely. These are people who are terrifying people to me. Yeah, and I see that Mavis mentions Bernie sold out faster than toilet paper. Of course he did. Just like he did in 2016 when he got his new house and Hillary Clinton ran, even though there was proof that the Democratic Party cheated in the primary and hurt Bernie Sanders. He should have been their candidate. He should have been their candidate. If Democrats want to scream about how Trump was Orange Man bad and he should have never been elected, maybe you shouldn't have stopped Bernie Sanders from running, except it was about power. They didn't want Bernie Sanders to have control. They wanted Hillary Clinton to have control, or she wanted to have control over them. And this is part of the problem. It's about that control. And yeah, when I see a party that 4 years ago was willing to disenfranchise its own voters, the Democratic Party, in 2016, as has been proven by every major news media source, every credible source in the nation and internationally. And when we see and we know for a fact they have violated that trust with their own members in their party, the rank and file, and then we come to this election and we see so many irregularities, yeah, I'm not surprised the American people don't trust what they're seeing, which means our government should go out of its way to reinstill that trust. If we want to prevent a second civil war, if we want to stop this purge of conservatives and Republicans that is going on right now, because I guarantee you the purge starts with us. It doesn't end with us. It reaches everyone else very shortly afterwards. If history has taught us anything, purges like this do not stop with the people they first target. It keeps going. And if we want to stop this, we need to reinstill our confidence in our government and our elected officials. Part of that is making sure we have term limits to get these people who've been there for a lifetime out of office and have new people replace them, and make sure that those people all are understanding that they need to be responsive to the public and their constituents and not the party. We need to get rid of the Anthony Brindicis and Anthony Delgados, the Nadlers and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes, and we need to put in your local person who actually understands what is going on in your community, what you need, and what is the respect of our government, the Constitution and the amendments and our laws. That's what I believe. Not everyone will agree with me, but that's what I believe. And Logan mentions that he doesn't agree with me on a lot of things and that he considers himself a libertarian, but it helps me to keep track of what the conservative zeitgeist is. And that's one of the reasons why we have the conversation. That's what First Amendment's about, and I agree with you, Logan. You don't have to, and I've never said you have to agree with me. We've had many discussions where we have reasons why we don't agree, and that's okay. And sometimes having those conversations gives greater insight into seeing how to better a situation. But when we have what we're having right now, which is with the big tech, with Nancy Pelosi, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all these individuals who are trying to say, silence anyone who doesn't agree with us. We're going to silence them. We're going to call them evil. We're going to shout them down. That isn't going to help anybody reach any greater position. It's not going to help our nation or us as individuals. And I think that's the important thing. Poppy mentions you always have a right to protect yourself. Well, you should. I think you should, Poppy, but look at the laws that are coming out. Listen to what Joe Biden has said. And I know he wasn't asked because he was hiding in a basement throughout the entire election period. But what he did say and what his vice president said is that they are going to increase the amount of gun control. By the way, look over history. Look over the last 50 years of America. Gun control has not made a single person in America safer. Not one ever. I defy anyone to show me any evidence where that has been the case, because I will show you all of the data that I have followed from the FBI, from New York State, from all states across the nation, that will show you that gun crime has remained the same, and in some places, like in Chicago, they have increased. Gun control will never make you safer, because gun control isn't about making you safe. It's about making you compliant. And that is the problem. And you need look no further than Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, New York City, LA. It will tell you the places with the most gun control for the longest periods of times have had the same, if not higher, problems. And in fact, if you look at just at 2020 so far, New York City, 97% increase in the amount of crimes. We've had 143% increase in the number of shootings. We had 4,033 people, 14-year high in Chicago alone. Yeah, it's not about gun control. Gun control isn't about making you safe. It's about making you compliant. And that's a problem because that's what we're seeing right now. It's not about being a conservative or Republican. It's about being compliant. It's not about which social media platform you prefer. It's about the fact that you're ostracized and you're an evil person if you don't do what those big tech companies are saying. It's like WNBF and Bob Joseph saying gleefully that anyone who doesn't agree with him has the moral low road and that you need to be locked in your house because Andrew Cuomo woke up this morning and decided that COVID is active at 10 o'clock at night rather than at any other point of the time or day. These are all, again, all of these problems come back to the same core, I believe. Poppy says it's about keeping people divided and arguing. They never wanted unity. If there is unity, they lose power. I agree with that. This isn't about unity. This is about submission. And the more strict the control is, the higher, we can't say absolutely, but yeah, Poppy, I believe the higher the gun control effort has been, yeah, I do believe there's been more violence in those areas because criminals don't care about the law. The mentally deranged don't care about the law. Law-abiding citizens do care about the law, and 99.9994, if I remember my numbers correctly, of the gun owners don't break the laws and aren't a problem. 99.9994, if I am correct, or it's 994. Please double check it. That is the literal amount of compliance of gun owners. That's how safe you are with another gun owner, which happens to be 1 out of 2 people in America. Roy mentions, check out the book More Guns, Less Crime by John Lott. That is one of them. There's also a Professor James Fox out of Northwest University, and I would recommend reading his studies on it. I would say look at the studies by Duke University and the University of Indiana, as I recall, which did study. They're the only 2 studies on the effectiveness of red flag laws, and they would tell you something. I have over 150 different sources that I regularly check on. It's a pretty clear statement. Logan mentions, would large companies support the government if they didn't receive subsidies or state support? That's a good question. I don't know. But I do know that when we look at some of the largest companies, like the big tech companies, they do get subsidies and support. When I look at the green energy divisions, they wouldn't exist without the support they get. Wind energy, solar, biogas, ethanol. They couldn't exist. They're so inefficient and so useless. They couldn't exist without the subsidies of the government, and in particular the far left, who believe in inefficiency. That's a problem. I mean, if they were efficient, that would be one argument, but they're not. Chickenbeck mentions, I think it was Ice-T that said something like, as soon as the cops and government give up their guns, I'll think about giving up mine. I like that. And I think it may have been Ice-T, who happens to be, as I recall, he's a libertarian, and he's definitely a gun control advocate, as I recall. No, Larry, you troll. I'm not ignoring you because of any reason other than you're a troll. So we've got I've been on for about 2 hours and 19 minutes. Wow. And I love you. I love my audience. I thank you. I thank you for being here with me, for having a conversation, for saying, like Logan, to disagree with me and to ask interesting questions like many people have, like Poppy has, that we've seen Mavis, Roy. I'm sad to see that we don't see some of our friends from over across the pond, or some of those in Germany and Peru and some of the other nations around the world. And I know that they are paying attention. Chicken Beak, I thank you for your comments. Jason, of course, Jason from Bing, for your comments. I love you guys. And for all the absolutely, the hundreds of other people who watch this, not necessarily all today, I thank you for your support and for the fact that you support the First Amendment like we do on this program. And I thank you for being Americans, whether you're Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, I don't care. That's really not important to me. It's the fact that you support our Constitution, that you believe in our ability to have free speech, and to add your voice to this when many, many of them don't. And Logan mentions, to elaborate, I don't trust companies when they profess a love of democracy while they ignore everything that happened in China, as an example, Disney. Yeah. Or when we hear so many people, how many of these businesses are saying, oh, we're all for women, we believe in women, like Hollywood. And women have, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, these same companies are catering to and ignoring, say, what all the problems that happen in the Middle East. How women are raped and subjugated and not allowed to go to schools. But you don't hear them talking about that. No. America's the problem. America is the problem, but we won't mention anything else about the problems in other parts of the world. If you're going to stand for something, you stand for it. Even if that is uncomfortable, even if that's difficult. And I'd have a lot more respect for them if that's what they did, but they don't. John Taylor says, been listening while doing housework here. UK. There you are. I knew some of my UK buddies were out there. And thank you, John, for being here with us. And again, it's not about commenting. It's not about necessarily saying something. Some people do, and I respect that. I also hear from people afterwards, and I understand. Some of you are afraid, as was mentioned earlier in the program, that there could be retribution. That's why I speak for you. That's why I listen to you, both now and in the comments, and those who reach me afterwards. And I put it out there and say, hey, I understand. There are a lot of us who have these same feelings. And I'm willing to take the slings and barbs of trolls like Larry and Messiah Andrews out of BLM and Plot, because we can't let fear destroy us and our nation. So I forgot to take this down. It was from the call that came in. All right, folks. So it's been 2 hours and 23 minutes. You know what? I'm going to go 7 more minutes, make it 2.5 hours even. And I thank you for this is an extended program. And for those who have seen this for the first time, please let you know, we normally do this is the long form political commentary that we do on this program. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we get on speaking with you, letting you speak your voice on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, as long as they allow us to continue to be in existence. We speak with you and let you share, just like you heard Jason call in, like you see so many people who have commented. We look forward to that always. And it's not about blindly agreeing with us. We don't ask you to do that. And I don't think anyone who has commented blindly believes one way or another. They have their reasons and their thoughts, and it's always interesting to hear that. And you are valued as well. And if you have enjoyed even parts of this, please like, share, subscribe, so that allows us to reach more people, to get more people to understand they are not alone in this battle for our freedoms in the United States until the day that the internet overlords wipe us out, which is probably coming soon. Poppy mentioned exactly, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. Exactly. And Michael Bowie mentions, I repeat, Trump should not concede He's our last best chance. Okay. And Mavis mentions, well, since you don't speak, I'm not going to, that's about the troll. And honestly, we really don't silence people here. Even the troll is typing away. Now, it's sad because if he weren't such a troll, we'd probably engage with him. But anyone else, if you want to have a conversation, respectfully disagree, tell me the reasons why. I'd be happy to hear it. A troll? No. But, conversation. That's what makes America great. That's how we improve our nation. That's how we have had a nation that has had so many different ideas, and we continue to go year after year after year. Because we have confidence and trust and belief that even if we disagree, we can have a conversation about it. And I want to see more of the fact that what we used to do is, okay, we disagree and we can compromise on certain things, that we can bend on certain issues and work towards the middle. Something that isn't exactly what either side may want ideally, but maybe we can work together on and say, okay, we can accept that and we can live together with that and we can be unified in that. That's not what I'm hearing from Joe Biden as he says, well, you've got to unite. We've got to unite. You're going to unite, or you're a racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, ism, and ist. That's not uniting America. Listening to people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi as they demand compliance and are willing to enact punishment for anyone who isn't subservient to them, that's not making it better. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez creating lists of people that she doesn't like to be used for some insidious manner, that doesn't help. Trying to expel members of Congress for legally and constitutionally raising questions and concerns that their constituents have. Because let us not forget, 75 million people voted, and millions of people, untold numbers of millions of people, have concerns and questions. They did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. That's what they got elected for. And respecting that is the way forward. That doesn't mean we have to comply. It doesn't mean that you have to submit. It doesn't mean you have to agree with all of it. But it definitely means we don't punish people because of it. Chicken Beak, thank you for being part of the discussion. And yes, I look forward to seeing you on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please do check out the show in the middle of the week. We do a lot of coverage. We're talking about a lot of things. And we got 2 minutes left, folks. Let me say this. I love America. I loved it as a Marine. I love it before I was a Marine. I love it now. I want the best for our nation. I want our nation to be unified. I want our nation to move forward. Does that mean I'm always going to see our nation do the things that I think are the best thing for us? No. Will it in the future? Probably not. Are there a lot of things that we're worried about? Absolutely. I strongly and solidly support the Second Amendment. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in protecting the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I denounce and reject anyone who would use fear, intimidation, violence, or the threat of violence to cause others to submit against their will and to remove their freedoms and rights, whether that's in the United States or anywhere else, and especially in our own country, in our own government. I believe strongly in term limits, and I will stand up for these views and these ideals. And if the internet overlords disagree with that, I don't really care, because they don't get to control the way I think, nor they control how I live. And the fact that some people think that they should is the problem. And until our leaders, some of our elected leaders, come to realize that, there is going to be a problem, and that problem will grow, and it will not go away. And it is not limited to any one man, any one news station, any one social media outlet, or one individual speaking. That is a fact. Some may not like that fact, but that fact exists. We need to heal our nation, and our healing starts not by punishing people that we didn't like or who we don't trust. It starts with a conversation, an honest conversation that there are problems, and those problems need serious corrections. And we need to endeavor to make sure that our elected leaders remember they are elected and they are representatives and they are not emperors like Governor Cuomo may think from time to time, or Newsom or Whitmer, that they are not subject to the whims and pleas of leadership of elected parties like Governor Wolf. When we start doing that, we get back to what America is, what it really is, what it really stands for, what I remember from 40, 50 years ago in my life, not what we've seen in the last 10 years, not in the last 20 years. We really need to work together, folks. And I hope that you'll support this channel and continue to help us to grow and to reach more people and to share in our expression of the First Amendment. It is our question. Poppy, you mentioned as the last statement here, it is our job to question. That's what the First Amendment is about. So I want to thank everybody for spending your time with me today. We went a little bit longer than usual, but I look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. And by the way, please, once again, I want you to go out, check out the Freedom Forum website. My friend Frank Johnson and others have worked together very hard to create this. It's difficult, and without your support, it cannot continue to exist. Please do support it as an alternative to Facebook, to Facebook, and it's growing. It's